Okay, so it's Cat Stanley Space Demon coming at you again. And today we're going to take a look at 10 Kiss songs that were inspired by other songs. It's part one in a two-part series of Kiss songs from the makeup era that were inspired by other songs. So let's dive right in. We'll go back to the beginning with a song from the first album called Strutter. Now, Paul Stanley says that song lyrically was his ongoing fascination with the women in the New York glitter scene. He said in some ways it was a sister song to Black Diamond. He said he was a middle-class kid from the suburbs who was suddenly thrown into this rock world that was taking place in New York City. The whole lifestyle and sense of fashion. He said that lyrically it's a tip of the hat to Bob Dylan's Just Like a Woman. Now I can see that, Bob Dylan, she takes just like a woman. She makes love just like a woman. And then Paul Stanley sang, she wears her satins like a lady. She gets away just like a child. I can see that. Musically, there's not really much of a connection. But lyrically, I think that's pretty cool, man, that he looked to Bob Dylan for the lyrics to that song. Okay, next on the list from that first album, song called Firehouse. It was inspired by a British group called The Move, a song called Fire Brigade. Paul said he liked that song, so he quote-unquote stole it and rewrote it. And if you go back and listen to The Move's version, musically there's not really a lot in common. Paul really kind of did his own thing with it. He says he stole it, but he really didn't. He just kind of took the idea of the Fire Brigade and then kind of Americanized it, called it the Firehouse. Okay, so the next one, Hotter Than Hell. This is one I really love. Paul said that he took the concept of this song from the Free song, All Right Now. He says it was a cool tune that was very much influenced by Free. The whole idea of sparse playing and storytelling, basically the same kind of a plot line about a guy seeing a girl and trying to pick her up and what she replies to him, and I totally see the connection if you listen to All Right Now and Hotter Than Hell. Hotter Than Hell is a great song, and of course Paul talks about the outro. He likens that one closer to Iron Man by Black Sabbath. And he said rather than going out with repeating the chorus, he threw that tag on the end and had Ace solo over it. A very cool song. I dig it a lot. Okay, next one. We're going to go to the third album, Dressed to Kill. Of course, Rock and Roll All Night, the band's first big hit song. And of course, you might already know the story behind it. Kiss's record label head, Neil Bogart, said the band needed an anthem. He wanted them to write a song, kind of like the songs Sly and the Family Stone were writing. Songs like Let Me Take You Higher, Stand, Everyday People. And Kiss kind of came up with their own version of a rock and roll anthem celebrating the lifestyle, partying all night, or rock and rolling all night, partying every day. Pretty straightforward. Great song. So that's where that one came from. Next one on the list, Shout It Out Loud. Song, of course, originally appeared on Destroyer, would later make an appearance on Alive 2 in a live version. Gene Simmons says he came in with the title because the band Gene and Paul were in before Kiss, Wicked Lester, used to do the old Holly song called We Want to Shout It Out Loud. Paul said he just kind of started repeating, shout it, shout it, shout it out loud. Kind of more or less took the inspiration from the title of the Holly song and became one of the biggest Kiss songs, and it's a great tune. I think most Kiss fans really dig that one. You can count me as one as well. Okay, so the next one's Hard Luck Woman. You might know the story about this one. Paul Stanley originally wrote this song with Rod Stewart in mind to sing it. He said he never planned on having it being recorded by Kiss. He was inspired by the Rod Stewart song Maggie May, Stewart songs like You Wear It Well, Mandolin Wind, and he challenged himself to write a song like that. He came up with Hard Luck Woman, and of course Peter Criss would be the one singing it on the the one that would appear on Rock and Roll Over, Kiss's version of the song that they recorded. And it's a great song. I think most Kiss fans will agree. It was kind of their attempt to follow up Beth. I think actually Gene and producer Eddie Kramer really thought it'd be a great song for Peter to sing. And when Peter heard it, he loved it and really wanted to sing it. And I think Paul kind of grudgingly gave it to the band for Peter to sing, since he didn't really have any intention of it being a Kiss song. Hard Luck Woman didn't quite reach the heights of Beth, but it's a popular song among Kiss fans, and that's where that one came from. Okay, so the next one, from that same album, Rock and Roll Over, a song called Makin Love, written by Paul Stanley. Paul Stanley said, "It's a great song. I was a huge Zeppelin fan," and he said that Makin Love was a tip of the hat to a whole lot of love. He says that's what he was striving for. I did a YouTube short way back when where I talked about how when Ace Frehley recorded the solo for Makin Love, it sounded to me like he had another Led Zeppelin song in mind for the solo, which was the one from Communication Breakdown. If you go back and listen to the solo from Communication Breakdown and listen to Ace's solo from Makin Love, you can kind of see where he got that inspiration from. And I kind of think it's kind of a genius move from Ace. I don't know if it was by design or if Paul told him, hey, this is my version of Led Zeppelin, and Ace decided to take his cue from Communication Breakdown, even though Paul was going for a whole lot of love. But it fits perfect. It's one of my favorite Ace solos. Is that solo from Makin Love, man. I think it's fantastic. The one version from Alive 2 is great too. Can't go wrong. One of my faves. Okay, so the next one, I Stole Your Love off of Love Gun. Paul Stanley said he was inspired by the Deep Purple song Burn. And if you listen to the beginning of Burn by Deep Purple, you can hear the obvious similarities. Now, Burn, man, I think that's a killer song, dude. And if that was what Paul was striving for, I don't think he quite made it with I Stole Your Love. I mean, it's a fine Kiss song. Not one of my favorite Kiss tunes, but it's not really happening in the same league as Burn by Deep Purple. That song is just killer, but that's where he got the inspiration for I Stole Your Love from. Okay, so next on the list, off of the Unmasked album, a song called Shandi, which I believe was a big hit in Australia, a very poppy song from Kiss. Paul said that he had heard Bruce Springsteen's song Sandy on the radio. Of course, Sandy is off of Bruce Springsteen's second album, The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle, which is probably my favorite of the early Bruce Springsteen albums. I really like that one. But Paul says he liked something about that song, and that's where that came from. He said it's not a steal at all. He said it couldn't have been Sandy because Springsteen had already written that. And he came up with the name Shandi with Vinnie Poncia. He said there was a singer at the time named Shandi Cinnamon, and that's where he came up with the name Shandi for that song. Okay, so the next one, I Love It Loud off of the Creatures of the Night album. Gene Simmons said, I Love It Loud was a song I started writing with Vinnie Vincent. He said, I wanted to write something that sounds like My Generation, the old Who song. He said, something that says, this is who I am and this is what I believe in. He said, if you listen to what the guitars are doing, it is in fact My Generation without being a ripoff. So he was inspired by My Generation, and he managed to steal the guitar part without it being a ripoff. So there you go. That's part one. 10 Kiss songs from the makeup era that were inspired by other songs. I'm going to put a link to part 2 in the description. If you dug this video and you want to watch part 2, go down to the description, click on the link. 7 more songs that were inspired by other songs from Kiss. So hope you dug it, and I hope to see you for part 2. Who's here?